month. You know what that means. It means, yeah, Salute is in a couple of weeks' time. But, I'm not going to be boring. I'm not going to talk about Salute. It means something else as well. It means it's time to look at some more White Dwarfs. So let's take a break from business of shows, and let's look at 2 more classic White Dwarfs. Here we go. Okay, White Dwarf 76, April 1986, with I'm not quite sure what this guy is doing to this lady on the back of this giant bird. Probably best not to inquire too closely as to what's going on there. That's Peter Andrew Jones, apparently, courtesy of Solar Wind Limited, so it's obviously from something else. Who knows what it's from. We're kicking off with some open box reviews, and this is a review of Riddle of the Ring, the classic Iron Crown Enterprises Lord of the Rings board game, which I have and which I quite enjoy. He's given it an overall 6. I can understand some of the things that he's picking up here about why it's not such a brilliant game, but I certainly enjoyed it when I was in my early teens. I've played it recently, and I still enjoy it. I still find it an entertaining game, if not perhaps as exactly Lord of the Rings as some other games that are around. But it's good. It's fun. Some more reviews of other things, including Lankmar, City of Adventure. This is a name that I know. He's given this a 10, which is high praise indeed from Graham Davis, and quite rightly so. This is an excellent module. I'm familiar, at least in name, with Lankmar. I don't know the books, the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories. I'm not really familiar with, but this as a tome, as a reference guide to a fantasy city, as an excellent setting for all kinds of adventures, really sets the bar high. So I am familiar with the module. I'm just not familiar with the books. But if you are familiar with the books, how does this hold up? Do you know about this module? Does it work? And should I go and read some Fafhrd and the Green Mouse? Or I don't know. Maybe I should. Some more review things. Here is a look at thieves in AD&D, but written from the perspective of a guildmaster instructing his apprentices. So it's a sort of first-person piece, which is an entertaining read. I've got the classic dungeon floor plans here from Games Workshop, and some classic buildings from Hovels. Justice Department Accounts Division for Judge Dredd. This is fun. So it doesn't suggest that you should encourage your players to play Accounts Division judges, but that you can throw them alongside player characters as interesting bits of flavour, things to add interest and excitement to an adventure, or perhaps not excitement, interest and frustration possibly to an adventure. But I think it would be quite fun to be an Accounts Division judge and to play that. Maybe not an entire squad of them. Maybe you don't want all your players to play Accounts Division judges, but I think you could have one player in amongst there. I think that would be quite entertaining to have. Here is a Warhammer scenario. Yes, they are starting to creep into White Dwarf. This one is a precursor to Macbeth, which we're going to find out about a bit more later on in this edition. This is cool. This gives you a number of different characters, some of which appear in Macbeth, some of which don't. And yes, a bit of a preamble precursor to that scenario box. So both an advert for the box and an extra thing to be playing if you've got it. Here is another look at thieves in AD&D, but this time it's a kind of Games Masters, or referee as it says here, Games Masters guide to using them in your campaigns. some ideas for campaigns for Golden Heroes and other superhero games. I guess they work well as one-offs, but if you wanted to continue character development and a big storyline arc, how would you go about doing it? This tries to suggest how that might work. Here we have an interesting D&D scenario involving a flying castle. It reminds me a lot of the, certainly in not so much in the makeup of the adventure, but in the themes of the adventure of the floating gardens of Bab-Elon, which we will find out. I'm sure we'll find that in a future White Dwarf. I think I haven't been past it yet. The Games Day special D&D adventure, which also has a floating castle, and I think it'd be interesting to run these two, not necessarily one after the other as a campaign, but it'd be interesting to see this as the same floating city after some changes had happened. It had been taken over by a particular wizard. But in this case, the players find themselves set upon by representatives of the castle's government as it floats overhead, and rather press-ganged into trying to locate a kidnapped heiress. Spoiler alert, she hasn't actually been kidnapped. So it's a plot full of intrigue. It's one of those ones where really the players probably don't have any interest in getting involved, but in this case it gets around it by very much giving them threats rather than the promise of gold as a reward. It suggests that harm will befall them should they fail to do what the leader wishes, which then gives them a bit of a moral quandary when they find out what's actually going on. So interesting in that respect. Here is Thrud the Barbarian, going to try and check out some new weapons. He's offered swords and maces and spiked balls, and decides to opt with his big axe anyway. Everything else is a bit too newfangled. Thrud's a classicist after all. We have another full-page adventure for Gobbledygook, this time storming a castle. Why is his horde of goblins storming a castle? They're trying to get Witch Seabag out of the dungeons, and of course, being a witch, she's not particularly grateful to them for that. Here's a little advance snippet of some Citadel Doctor Who bits and pieces, and we're going to find more of those in a moment. Just a very short moment, because after these pages of adverts we get onto this Tabletop Heroes section, which is continuing the series looking at painting on oils, this time looking at a bit of colour theory, a bit of mixing shadows and highlights and avoiding using black and other things that I guess have sort of drifted down from classical painting and are now firmly ensconced in miniature painting. Although I know a lot of people do use black, and certainly a lot of the heavy metal stuff is painted using black or blank inks at least. But this idea that you deaden the paint job if you just mix black in with it, you should mix a dark blue or something instead to give it a bit of richer tones. And here we have some more of those Doctor Who figures, sculpted of course by Trish Morrison, as was Carden now, and some more Judge Dreddy judges. This great big hulking brute here, and a plastic Yoda toy. Yeah, it's all an eclectic mix, but my favourite from this selection is of course the classic Citadel orcs here. This dragon's nice too. Nice dragon. Here's some more Doctor Who figures, in case you haven't noticed that Citadel are selling Doctor Who figures. Go buy them now. Some more adverts. Some more adverts. Tunnels and Trolls things. This is I think maybe the first appearance of Tunnels and Trolls in White Dwarf. Possibly not, but anyway, this is once Corgi had got its hands on it as a UK alternative to Dungeons and Dragons, and was trying to push it, but it didn't get very far, unfortunately, despite having these nice covers by the one and only Josh Kirby, which are very suited and would instantly have made me go out and buy them had I been aware of their existence. There's Macbeth again, in case you haven't got it and you want to pick it up after the Glen Woe scenario that you've been playing. There we go, a quick run through of White Dwarf 76 April 1986. Let's switch our attention to White Dwarf 136 from April 1991. We've had a classic Ultramarines looking cover there, but most of this issue, or a great deal of this issue, is going to be taken up with the freebooters that we saw on the inside here. We had that bit last, what would have been the last issue. I know we've been through several different eras since then, but the last issue of the of 1991 had a lot of freebooter stuff in it, and this is going to continue that that trend. First of all, unusual to have a battle report first off straight away in White Dwarf, but there you go. This is the first thing we come across. Is an epic battle report. It's epic. Obviously not my favourite game system, but some nice looking armies here. It's a shame that the maps throughout are a bit uninspiring. They are coloured maps, there's some colour coding on them, but being black and white drawn, they're not particularly visually exciting, nor is the writing particularly exciting. It's a very academic blow by blow account of the battle. It's not a story. It's not any particular humorous discussion. It's a bit of a bland battle report. There are some pictures of aspects of the battle, but you can see from the fact that this building complex appears in all three of these, they're very located in one area of the battlefield. There's not much diversity there. Never mind. The Eldar Guardians, this is an interesting article on painting Eldar Guardians from the various different craft worlds, because I feel like we've seen these photos in a White Dwarf not all that long ago. I think about a year ago there was an article on painting Guardians, but obviously I feel like with the release of some new Guardians, it's time to remind people what the different craft worlds look like and how to go about painting them. There is then a very lengthy story, The Magician's Son, an extract taken from, is it from, what's it? Yes, Ignorant Armies. There you go, Ignorant Armies. It's an extract from that book to try and convince you to go and read Games Workshop fiction, and it continues for quite a while. It's got these really nice Paul Bonner illustrations in, some great characters. They make really nice miniatures. It's not a bad story. It's about the level that I would expect from Games Workshop literature, possibly slightly higher, but it's not high fiction. I'm listening to quite a lot of Michael Moorcock at the moment, and I think Michael Moorcock was probably a strong inspiration, not only for the world, but also for the literary style of a lot of writers for the Warhammer world. Not the greatest literary writer. Maybe the stories are good, but would benefit from a bit of writer training. Then we look at Bretonnian Knights. This is appropriate, I guess, with the old world stuff coming out recently and focusing around Bretonnians first of all rather. There's some really nice, I assume that these are Perry sketches. On the back of this issue, to go with it, there's this rather nice Perry illustration of some knights fighting in the front of a castle. I think these are probably Perry sketches as well. showing the heraldry, which is good. I pulled something out of here that I've got hundreds of heraldry books, and I haven't, not hundreds, half a dozen heraldry books, and hadn't pulled out before the fact that you don't ever put a colour on a cuttle. A colour on a cuttle? No, a colour on a colour, or a metal on a metal, that you always put a metal onto a colour. Or a colour onto a metal, which is why I think some of my heraldry previously has not looked quite right. These whites and yellows need to sit on a colour, but you wouldn't put a green, for example, on top of the red, because that's mixing two colours together, and I have done that previously and it hasn't looked quite right, and so obviously that's why I should have been reading my White Dwarfs a bit more thoroughly. But some lovely painting here, very classic Bretonnian looking, but also obviously sort of 100 Years War styly Perry sculpts. Here's some Q&A with some really lovely looking ranked up, some nice 3rd edition orcs there en masse, talking about various questions that people have from 3rd edition, 4th edition not having come out quite yet. And here we are into freebooters with Bad Orc Bike Boys, Outcast Odd Boys, Renegade Speed Freaks, Cornstorm Boys, and an account on painting. Storm Boys, Renegade Runt Masters, Renegade Mech Boys, Gretchen Bandits, all the other things that weren't covered in the previous issue of Weird Boy Warpheads of White Dwarf. So there you go, you've now got all of the freebooter bits and pieces, and you can obviously punch this out and put it in your ring binder. I think, is this before Here We Go came out, maybe, and all this was then later collected in Here We Go? I don't know, or War the Orcs, one or the other, I don't know. I should have a check, because I've got Here We Go somewhere. I think it's got this in, maybe it hasn't. But anyway, now you have, with these 2 issues of White Dwarf, you've got all of the stuff that you need to have a freebooter mob. Hooray! Here is some classic Marauder sculpts. Lovely Lich here, and some vampires, necromancers, whites, and an undead allied contingent that can be yours for $27.50 for 9 skeleton archers, 19 skeleton warriors, 19 grim reapers, 3 skeleton champions, and 1 necromancer. Not a bad deal, even then. I think not a bad deal. All of the grim reapers, of course, being the same model. Considering the Grim Reaper, the skeleton with a scythe, was a big element of 3rd edition undead armies. I think it was a requirement for quite a few of them. Only a couple of miniatures with scythes were actually produced, which feels a shame. I used to use the ones from HeroQuest. And Phil Lewis and Ivan Bartfleet here are explaining how to make a gobsmasher out of plasticard and foam core and other bits and pieces, toilet roll tubes, Blue Peter styly, which is cool and fun. Gives you all the templates and some banners and some ideas, and some sort of card mock-ups here for other battle wagon styles, templates for a brain crusher, and a bone cruncher, and ideas for making your own, a lung burster, and some data sheets. Make your own out of cardboard. Hooray! Hooray for scratch building orky vehicles. And then we've got catalogue pages appearing at the back here. Here's some epic Imperial tanks. And if you wanted to scratch build yourself some battle wagons, here are an idea of some epic battle wagons, what they look like for you to turn into your own constructions. I'd like to see a Skullhammer built in 40k style. That would be really cool. I don't think Armorcast ever did one, did they? They did a Gobsmasher, I believe, but not necessarily anything quite that size. Here are those classic Jez Goodwin Eldar, nice alien looking guardians. I love the punky style here. Definitely my favourite era of Eldar. And oh, is it not on this page? I was sure there was a page in here. I hadn't turned over to you. Oh, that's weird. Maybe it's, I'm getting confused, it's in the one that we're going to do next week. And here are those Bretonnian Knights. Flame Publications Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay stuff, and that nice Perry illustration of the knights on the back there. So here we have our White Dwarf 136 and our White Dwarf 76, and next week we're going to be jumping forwards another 5 years and looking at issue 196, April 1996. So join me for that, and obviously if you hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button, you'll find out when it's live, but it will be next Wednesday. So thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you then. Take care, have a nice week, and I'll see you again.